And that was before, and of course it was just last week while we were at the Haberdashery talking to you and your partner Tracy,
right,
and hearing you talk about the process of getting, for instance, the big loan to finance the rehabilitation of this building or totally gut it and redo that. And we'll look at some of these photos in a second, but it was at that point, did you have a loan already in place when you approached the city about locking the land down, or did that come after the fact?
Well, basically we got the property and we thought, it's $1 million. That's not a lot of money. A lot of people are doing that kind of stuff all over the place. So.
Right.
And it was really comical because after we got the property, the paper, press started releasing articles that the property had been transferred from the city to us and that we were going to develop something on the property.
Right.
Immediately, the day after the paper went out, we had 3 bankers in our store at the same time.
Is that
sticking their head in the office going, we're here.
Yeah.
If you need some help, we'd be glad to help you.
Wow.
And it was just amusing how the circus came from all the banks coming to us.
Sure.
But little did we know that, 2 poor country boys can't get a $1 million loan on a concept.
Right.
So.
Yeah, break that down a little bit for viewers who just what that process was like. I think I saw in that same story that it ended up being about a 2-year process.
It took us at least 2 years because, we'd go to the bank, we would request the money, and then we'd get a no. Then finally a bank said, you got to do an appraisal of the property. Well, I had to swallow hard on that because that was like $4,000 for an appraisal.
Right, sure.
Just to tell you what the property's going to be worth when you finish.
When you finish it, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the problem with the appraisal was there are no comps for a building of our type anywhere around because we're building a multi-use building that has the retail, it has the restaurant, it has the apartments on the second floor.
Right.
And there's nothing around here like that. So they really couldn't get a comp for that. And they're trying to go to Wilmington or Charleston to get a comp. Well, values in Wilmington and Charleston are way different than values in a small town like Conway.
Sure, good point.
So that made it difficult.
Right.
So finally we get a comp, we get an appraisal, and we go to the bank. Then you find out that appraisals are really only good for one bank. So if that bank rejects you, then you got to start over the process with the appraisal.
Oh no.
And you got to get that appraisal done for another bank.
Right.
So
at least you were able to say there is some kind of comp out there.
That's right.
We know somebody's found a comp.
We know that the value is between this figure and this figure when the building is done.
Right.
So now the banks are going, do you really think this is going to work? Do you really think people will lease space inside of a building?
Yeah.
Because it's in a downtown area, but we have a corridor that goes through the building, and it's shops on the corridor inside, somewhat like a mall, even though it's not really a mall. So it gives you the feel of that, and so they're questioning that. Then we're putting apartments upstairs in downtown Conway. Well, there are only 2 apartments in downtown Conway prior to us.
Is that right?
And they're going, do you think you're going to be able to lease luxury apartments in downtown Conway?
Right, right.
So we're having to jump all those hurdles.
Yeah.
And then we're finding out that the only way you can get a loan from a national bank is you've got to have leases in hand for the property to prove that you can lease the property before they'll loan you the money, because they won't do speculative loans.
Right, right. Wow.
So immediately we realized that out of all the banks that were vying for the loan, any bank that was a national bank, and then if anybody called me and said, have you tried this bank? I'd say, well, are they a state bank or a national bank? Because the national bank is not going to loan us the money unless we have the leases in hand. We had situations where, like the city of Conway, we partnered with the city of Conway on this, of course, from the start because they own the property.
Sure.
We had to do certain things to their specifications.
Right.
We had to create the project in the manner that we told them it was going to be.
Sure, as a mixture.
And so we worked with them back and forth, and at one point they said, so what if we give you a lease on the property to go to the bank? Well, that's not legitimate because we don't want them to occupy the building. We want retail in the building, not city offices or anything. So
that's great, though, that the city was willing to step up to the plate and try to help out and make it happen.
So there were so many options that they were coming up with for trying to make this work.
Right.
So finally, I realized out of all the banks that we were dealing with that, Coastal Federal was the only bank that had the ability to create, and then Delane Stevens at that time worked with the Conway Coastal Federal.
Yes.
And he was the most enthusiastic about making it happen.
That's great.
So it came down to, give me a list of things, the requirements that I have to meet in order to get to the loan.
Yeah.
And so when he gave me the list of 7 or 8 things, then we started
knocking them down.
Started knocking down the list and scratching them off as we went until we got to the point where we had the final thing done, and then we could say, okay, we've satisfied everything on your list.
Right.
And it took us pretty much 18 months to satisfy all those things on the list once we got the list. Mm-hmm. Because there were some pretty tough requirements they had there.
Absolutely.
And actually had to split the loan into 2 different loans in order to make it work with different.
That is fantastic. Of course, it really, I'm sure it opened up, having a great partner probably made it even more exciting, the opportunity to move forward. In '88, setting up the business by yourself, you probably wondered, I'd never have a partner. And then in '91, that opportunity opened up when Tracy Pickens came on the scene.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
And we work well together because the things he does, I don't do. And the things I do, he doesn't do.
Right.
So he's great at handling day-to-day operations.
Right.
Yeah, I can get up this morning, come here, and know that when I get there, everything's going to be taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's going to make sure that all the steps are taken care of to get to that point.
Later this morning.
If we were working on this project and we come up with a list of things that need to be done for the project, I can hand him the list and he'll sit there and check off every list on the project until it's all completed. So
I love it. That's tremendous. We've got some great pictures here. We don't have much time. I hate to say it, time blows by here on a Thursday morning. Russell, let's break down just a handful of these photos. We got a great shot right here of kind of the inside right after they got rolling. Give viewers a sense of what's happening in this shot.
Well, this shot really is where they had to add the wall because the building was originally a 2-story building on the front, but the roof, I think it may have had, like, when the building was built in the 30s, they put a living quarters because back then a lot of times the person who ran the store lived upstairs.
Okay.
And this storefront actually had an apartment type thing above the store.
Upstairs, right.
But it didn't extend all the way to the back. So they actually built the wall up so that we could put apartments all the way on the 4th Avenue side of the building. The 6 apartments go all the way to the back of the building. So they built the wall up. And that's actually the scaffolding where they went up with the wall to make it extend all the way to the back of the 2-story building.
I probably went in the wrong order. The shot this next shot
that's
here.
The coolest shot because that was actually when we did our groundbreaking facade raising.
Right.
Was the first shot. And that's when they actually knocked the facade down on the Laurel Street facade.
Laurel Street, right.
Was not a substantial facade. After the fire in the building, the facade bowed out. And the city was very afraid that structurally it wasn't sound and that it would fall into the street, which it took them 90 minutes to knock the facade into the street after they started. So it really was
groundbreaking?
It was way more sound than they ever thought it was when they started with the process. But it looked like the integrity was gone in the facade. So we actually took that facade down on the Laurel Street side and went back and shot pictures of other facades in Conway, and the architect created the look of a facade that mimicked the historic 1920s, 1930s facades.
I love it. Very impressive. Very impressive. This next shot, of course, it has a shot of Chancellor Construction there. You had some good locally owned and operated general contractor there involved.
And that's the 4th Avenue facade, which it stayed up. It survived the fire, and it's a very substantial facade. So they built back to that facade, and this picture is just showing what the facade looked like when they started the construction.
Right. What a great shot there, and of course the shot right after it is actually that side, and we'll take another quick shot of a couple of these looks on Laurel Street, but on 4th Avenue there. Is that Tracy out front, your partner?
Yeah, that's when he was kind of directing. That was right after the building was finished, but it's not even occupied at that point, so we're still trying to do some fine-tuning there on the lower level as we...
Sure. And not long after that, Haberdashery and Sassy Girl ended up with those two.
Right, Sassy Girl and Haberdashery in those locations.
4th Avenue side.
Which they opened to the street, and they opened inside the shopping complex.
I love it. That they do. And we enjoyed visiting both those stores last week when we were there in Conway. How about these 3 shots here on the Laurel Street side? This first shot here at the bottom.
Well, of course, this shot when we did the groundbreaking was from the inside of this facade, and this first shot is where they're building the facade back to create the 1-story facade that's on Laurel Street.
Right.
And then the guys are hanging the sign in the second to get it.
I love it. A good ways along, absolutely.
That's right. The finishing details to make it look like it looks today, and then the final shot is kind of a sunset shot of the facade right after the Ultimate California Pizza opened.
I love it. I love it. So you've got seven retailers, or seven separate groups within the Blackwater Market. You just said Ultimate California Pizza, obviously the Haberdashery, men's clothiers.
Right. We have the J. Murray Shoe Store,
right,
which is nice ladies' shoes, and then the Shades of Life Salon and Spa, which was the very first shop to open in the market.
Right.
And they do full day spa, everything from massages to pedicures to hair and anything in between that you need as far as the spa experience.
Yes, yes. And then the Haberdashery, Haberdashery, Waccamaw Bank, and of course Sassy Girl.
Right.
Is there anything you do differently, Russell, if you could do it over starting back there in '99? Is there anything in the last minute that you do differently?
Probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
It's like going to work in Disney World every day. It's just fun. There's more excitement. Now, the biggest problem you have is when you are in a store on the street with a storefront and you're not interconnected with other stores, you're locked into one location all day long.
Right.
And so now it's almost like, even though there are different shop owners in different businesses, you become a family type situation, especially because of the small amount of stores in there. And everybody's friends with everybody else. And
oh, yeah.
We found that to begin with, we had a real problem with the employees because they would wander out of the store into another store, like you're leaving your living room and going into the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they were just, it was like another room of the house, and and you had to keep bringing them back home.
And you and your partner have both stayed so thin. He and you are obviously, y'all are both walking around there the whole time.
Running.
Yeah, running.
Yeah, we run a lot.
I love it. That's great. Congratulations again. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Russell Fowler coming up next. Conway should be Russell's middle name. Think of that. 50 years ago yesterday, he was born in the city of Conway. Think of that. 1975, graduate of Conway High School. 78, Coastal Carolina College there in Conway. His first job in Conway, right there in Belk. Think about this. 1988, recruited by Conway Main Street USA to come in and the opportunity to do the haberdashery. And then in 99, when the city of Conway bought that land from Larry Paul, that great location right there between Laurel and 4th Avenue, and opened the door for him a little ways down the road to get on in there and open up the Blackwater Market, and he and Tracy to move haberdashery and the herdashery right in there into the Blackwater Market, a special place. We've run out of time, but 1999 was a big year. 99 ties in. That's 248-9999, 248-9999. Stop by and see Russell and Tracy at the Blackwater Market right there in historic downtown Conway.